All right, everybody, we'll go ahead and get started. We have a good audience of 40 people so far. More people are joining us as we speak. We are admitting everyone into the event. This event is also being recorded as people join. You will be placed on mute just to cut down on some audio interference. So whatever you say or do is in the own privacy of your home office or wherever you may be watching this from. We also have this being recorded. So whatever you say or do will forever live on and cement your legacy and reputation throughout the region and possibly around the world to the millions of viewers that are watching this tonight. With that being said, we also have a member of the media on tonight. Lucas High from the Biz West has just joined us. So in addition to the recording, Lucas may capture what you say, do, and
just might.
All right, there he is, just confirming. All right. So thank you for attending the Northwest Chamber Alliance's Transportation Funding Roundtable. Today, it's just great to see the partnership that we have across our region with all of you, our elected officials, our local government representatives, our businesses, nonprofits, but also the chambers that make up the Northwest Chamber Alliance across Boulder County and Broomfield County. Last week, we sent a letter to the governor and to our legislators at the Capitol ahead of the legislative session to articulate and communicate the things that are important to the Northwest Chamber Alliance, our businesses, and our regional economy for a discussion in what should be one of the most probably highest priority, highest watched issues that will be discussed during this legislative session, and that's on transportation funding. Today, we wanted to follow up that letter by putting together this event with the purpose to focus on what we want to hear from our businesses as we organize and get ready to go down to the Capitol during the legislative session to meet with Governor Polis, our legislators, and to further advocate for more funding to come to our region for mobility and transportation improvements. Because if there's one common goal that we all have, it's to improve the regional mobility for commuters and residents to sustain a thriving economy that's really great for the quality of life here in the Northwest Denver area. Along with all of you, we have done this in partnership, and now we'll go ahead and introduce the members of the Northwest Chamber Alliance, and then we will begin our event. But before we do that, I just want to introduce myself. I am Andrea Meneghel, Director of Public Affairs at the Boulder Chamber, part of the Northwest Chamber Alliance, and our coalition formed in 2016. In 2016, the chambers across Boulder and Broomfield County came together to form the Northwest Chamber Alliance, and today we're 8 chambers, recently adding the LGBTQ Chamber of Boulder County. So with that being said, we represent collectively about 3,700 businesses, nonprofits, startups, public institutions, and your favorite restaurant that would probably be catering this event if we were meeting in person. So it's a wide array of stakeholders in this region and workforce that need mobility improvements that we're all working so hard for. Now I'd like to introduce some of the other leaders in the Northwest Chamber Alliance, and we'll start with my colleague, John Tair.
Hello, everybody. My name is John Tair. I'm president and CEO of the Boulder Chamber and proud member of the Northwest Chamber Alliance. And the only thing I'll add to Andrea's introduction is one of the unique things about the Northwest Chamber Alliance is we operate completely on consensus. So we don't often come together on specific positions because we want to make sure we're in consensus. But when we do and speak on behalf of the business community, you can know that it's a uniform position of the Boulder and Broomfield counties. And I think that's one of our strengths. So welcome everybody today.
I'm Lori Call, a Senior Director of Policy Programs with the Boulder Chamber.
I'm Sam Taylor. I'm the President and CEO of the Broomfield Chamber of Commerce. Welcome.
I'm Vicki Trumbo, and I'm the Executive Director of the Lafayette Chamber, and welcome to everybody who is here. This is a great turnout.
My name is Ricardo Cabrera, and I am with the Latino Chamber of Commerce of Boulder County.
And I'm Scott Beard. I'm on the advisory board of the LGBTQ Chamber of Boulder County.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Scott Cook, CEO at the Longmont Chamber, and I have just one ad. If you're having fun today with our Northwest Chamber Alliance, we have a mega mixer coming up on 3/24, so be sure to sign up for that. You can sign up at your individual chamber. If you think Mega Mixer has a WWF sound to it, you are correct. That is the theme for the event. It will be a fun virtual event scheduled for 3/24. It's free and will be a lot of fun. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. I'm Stacy Cornet. I work with the Longmont Chamber, and it's great to see all of you here today.
And bringing up the rear, TJ Sullivan from Superior Chamber. Hello, everybody.
And I'd also like to acknowledge the partnership of somebody that couldn't be here, and that's Shelley Angel, who is the Executive Director of the Louisville Chamber, who's also part of the Northwest Chamber Alliance. So today we got a packed agenda. You're going to hear from Congressman Joe Neguse on his efforts at the federal level. You'll hear from our state senators, Stephen Femberg, Faith Winter, and Representative Matt Gray on what they see coming in the legislative session and for a state solution. And then we'll hear from representatives of the Northwest Mayors and Commissioners Coalition, Boulder County Commissioner Claire Levy and City and County of Broomfield Mayor Patrick Quinn on what our regional priorities are. But really the heart of this event, after we hear from those folks, is to go into breakout rooms and sessions. We'll hear directly from all of you, from all of our businesses, to hear what you need. We'll have more of our state representatives there. Representative Edie Hooten, Judy Amabile, Tracy Burnett, Karen McCormick, Senator Sonia Jaquez Lewis have all registered today and are either trying to get out of their committee meetings right now to make it here, or they're already here. We have other elected officials like Mayor Harkins from Lafayette, Longmont City Council members, and folks from across the region that will be part of those conversations as well. We welcome all of you. We are advocating for all of you. And at the Boulder Chamber, we couldn't do this without the support that we get from Google, WW Reynolds Company, and just thank you for that. So with that being said, we also have a couple other updates. I'll turn to Lori. Lori, a couple announcements for the good of the group.
Yeah, this is an important update when it comes to the state's transportation planning. There is a project underway that's really focusing on reducing the number of people commuting daily in single occupancy vehicles. And so the employer-based trip reduction program is addressing how the state works with larger businesses to work with their staff on initiatives like teleworking, taking the bus, and carpooling. We know a lot of people are teleworking right now, and many will continue to do so post-COVID. But as the planning gets underway, we really think it's important that the business community be involved in these conversations because it will impact you. Joan Lyon from our partner Boulder Transportation Connections is going to add some information about feedback sessions that are taking place on the employer-based trip reduction program. And I encourage you to reach out to Joan and her colleagues at Boulder Transportation Connections if you have any additional questions. Back to you, Andrea.
All right, thank you, Lori. Congressman Joe Neguse had planned to be here with us this afternoon. And at the last minute, his schedule changed, but knowing how hard that he works for us at the federal level, he was still committed to having some presence here. And he filmed a video before he had to get on a flight and sent that. My colleague, Tyler X, will be playing that video on the screen for all of us to see. And then after that video, we have Kim Red, Joe Neguse's senior constituent for advocates here with us, and she'll be able to field any questions or take any comments for Congressman Neguse. So with that being said, Tyler, if you could play the video from Congressman Neguse.
Hello, everybody. My name is Joe Neguse, and I am so honored to represent Colorado's 2nd Congressional District. I want to thank you for involving us, my staff and I, in this roundtable and in the ongoing conversation surrounding our state's transportation and infrastructure needs. I'm so sorry that I couldn't be with you in person or live today, unfortunately, but nonetheless, I'm so grateful to be able to join you virtually for this important conversation. Over the past 2 years, I've advocated for federal funding to come to Colorado to help us improve our state's infrastructure, our highways, our public transportation, and to support our outdoor recreation economy. The need for critical infrastructure repairs and improvements to our transportation system are always one of the top issues that I hear about when talking with constituents from across our district. Stretching across the Front Range through rural areas and into the mountains, our district's infrastructure needs are as diverse as the district itself. Improvements to major highways like North I-25 and I-70 into the mountains are critical to improving traffic patterns along those major routes. And expanding public transit bus routes along the major corridors are also of great importance as Coloradans look for more opportunities to use public transportation, not to mention the need for increased broadband access in many of our communities. Last year, some of you may know, Congress passed the CARES Act, which allocated $25 billion for public transit agencies. In December, Congress passed our second COVID relief package, which included $10 billion for state transportation departments and local transportation agencies, including CDOT, $14 billion for public transit agencies, and another $50 million for paratransit providers. Those critically needed funds allowed state departments of transportation and transit agencies like our own in Colorado to pay employee salaries, to provide PPE, and to make investments in construction projects, driving economic development and working on needed projects throughout our state, including some in Colorado's 2nd District. Using funds from this December package, the Colorado Department of Transportation, CDOT, was able to allocate $6.5 million towards the Berthoud Mobility Hub project at State Highway 56 and I-25. Some of you may be familiar with that project. It will lay the groundwork for a center-loading express bus staying station to expand public transportation between Fort Collins and Denver, and will increase accessibility for bus staying and promote economic activities such as retail and dining in the area. These stimulus funds were also used towards the State Highway 119 adaptive signal system to design and plan improvements to intersections, create managed lanes, and increase multimodal accessibility to enhance transit service between Boulder and Longmont and connect those two economic centers. The American Rescue Plan, which just passed the House and the Senate a few days ago and is now headed to the president's desk, included an additional $30.4 billion for public transit agencies. I was proud to work with my colleagues on this important piece of legislation that provides much needed relief to Americans across our country and really in every sector of our economy. I believe we have great opportunities ahead of us in the 117th Congress, and I'm incredibly hopeful for the prospects of passing an infrastructure package this year through both chambers, one that will be signed by President Biden. An upcoming infrastructure package provides an exciting opportunity for us to reinvigorate our economy, generate economic investment through construction projects. The Surface Transportation Reauthorization, as many of you know, expires in September of this year, and it provides a unique vehicle and an opportunity for additional investments in transportation and all types of infrastructure. I want to continue to work with my colleagues to advocate for the infrastructure needs of our district in this package, and I intend to do so. Infrastructure and reliable transportation are important to all Americans and all Coloradans. Investing in these critical resources ensures that our infrastructure is more resilient in the face of natural disasters, reduces our climate impact, creates and sustains jobs, and improves movement of people and goods that will benefit the lives of all Coloradans. An infrastructure package would have an immense impact on our communities, from investments in highways to expanding broadband access to drinking water infrastructure. I'm committed to working to incorporate the priorities of our wonderful district and our communities into this package of legislation, and I can assure you this is a top priority for my staff and I as these conversations continue on the federal level. So again, thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you for a few minutes today, and I hope that you and your families are staying safe and warm in the snow. Please don't hesitate to reach out to my office if we can be of any assistance, and I look forward to the work ahead.
Thank you, Congressman Neguse. And thank you for all the work you're doing for our region and for your congressional district. As mentioned earlier, we do have Kim Red. Kim is the Senior Constituent Advocate for Congressman Joe Neguse and is focused on our transportation needs within his district. Are there any questions for Kim? You could either use the raise hand function in the Zoom, or you could place your questions right in the chat. Okay, seeing none, if you do have any, Kim will be joining us for the breakout rooms. We'll be hearing from all of you, and we'll be here through the event. We'll be listening to kind of what our businesses are looking for. But,
Andrea, why don't I just, one question I'll ask Kim is just the timing of the infrastructure bill, and just if they thought about support that would be helpful from the business community here in advancing a successful passage.
And I think that that's still a little bit up in the air, but they're looking at working on this in May and June. And I think there is a, not a hard line, but they're looking at early July as when they would like to be introducing this and potentially trying to pass that. And I'm here today to really hear from the business community about what your needs might be and take that back to the congressman. I handle infrastructure and transportation issues for the congressman. So I would be happy to talk with any of you about what your needs are. And also as a business, I know that it's been a real, the COVID has really been a hard hitting thing for the business community. And I know he's been advocating for a lot of the relief that has come out to the business community so far. So I'm here to listen to all of that and be able to take some messages back to the congressman.
Kim, we do have a question in the chat asking if there's any news on earmarks for this year.
You know, that's something that's being discussed right now as far as how that might work, but there's nothing really set at this point. I just talked to my counterpart in Washington, D.C., and she said they're just really talking about how the infrastructure package is working and then how different monies might be designated. So that's still kind of an open question.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here today, Kim. Thank you for being a part of this event. Thank you for getting the video and the comments from Congressman Neguse. And, you know, we just really appreciate the partnership with his office, with you, and with the rest of the staff. Also here today, we're fortunate to have our folks at the state level. Senator Stephen Femberg, Senator Faith Winter, and Representative Matt Gray are here to talk about the state legislation that's coming forward. Also representing us at the state level, we've been joined by CDOT Transportation Commissioner Karen Stewart, and also another CDOT Transportation Commissioner, Kathleen Brackey. Karen represents our region, Kathleen represents the region north of us, and we're also fortunate that Kathleen is part of Boulder County staff, so she has a lot of roles. We also have officials from RTD that have just joined us. District Directors Lynn Geisinger, Eric Davidson. So we have a great group of folks that are listening to your needs. With that being said, I will go ahead and turn it over to Senator Femberg, Senator Winter, and Representative Matt Gray to tell us what's going on at the state, talk about the politics being played in this conversation, and really how the letter that the Northwest Chamber Alliance sent, some of those elements that we advocated for our region, for our workforce, and some of those goals that we'd like to see could potentially be met as this discussion unfolds and evolves throughout the legislative session. So with that being said, Senator Femberg.
Great. Well, thanks, Andrea, and good to see everybody. It's always good to connect with Chamber folks, and it's hopefully one day in the very near future we'll be able to hang out with each other in person. But for now, it's good to see all of your faces. As Andrea said, I'm Steve Femberg. I represent Senate District 18, which includes the city of Boulder plus some of the smaller mountain communities around the city, but all within Boulder County. I serve as the Senate Majority Leader in the Senate, and have been working over the last couple of months with Representative Gray, Senator Winter, and Speaker Garnett on a transportation package. So, you know, I know we're gonna have some Q&A, and I'm sure there's gonna be some specific questions, and we'll get to that. But just to lay out sort of the overview, and I know Senator Winter and Representative Gray will probably get into some nerdy details that, yep, there you go. Yep, they're always down for the nerdy details. But I'll give the overview and let them pick up where I leave off. You know, I don't think I need to rehash the need here. I think all of us on this call already understand the severity of the need. We have a transportation system that is not meant for the population and the way we move today. Our system has been in a lot of ways reliant on the gas tax, which we also have goals that are trying to reduce the use of gas. So that means we are reducing the revenue coming in for our transportation system. But we still need to move around. We still need to move goods and services and have a functioning transportation system. But over time, that funding source is eroded. Also, not just because we are trying to use less gas and electrify our transportation, but we also haven't allowed our gas tax to move with inflation. So we've basically lost 30 years of buying power because that was the last time we adjusted our gas tax. And that has meant that we basically have a declining revenue source. So we are doing something that I would not recommend any other legislator to ever do, which is take on the big transportation problem in one bill and see if we can make a very meaningful impact in addressing the structural problems and funding our transportation system. And we are very much thinking about how to, you know, the word we're using is future-proofing. Maybe that's 2 words. I don't know if Webster has decided if it's 1 or 2 words. We're future-proofing the transportation system in this bill. That's the goal. And by that, when we say that, we mean future-proofing the revenue sources so that we're not just relying on a shrinking pot of money, but also future-proofing the way we use our roads so that we're not just thinking about the way we've always thought about roads, which is let's build some more roads, build more lanes, build some bridges, and that should take care of it for a couple decades. But really thinking about what is the way that we use roads today, and how are we going to increasingly use roads in the future? And that, in our point of view, means a whole lot more multimodal, a lot more transit, a lot of connected communities that are planning on regional levels, not just who can pave more roads. And also taking into account the fact that more people are going to be, we hope, buying electric cars. And therefore, we're going to need to change the types of services and infrastructure that's available on our roads to make that transition one that is effective, that's fast, but also equitable. And so we are, you know, when it comes to the letter from the Northwest Chamber Alliance, I think a lot of these goals are things that we have been wrestling with for the last several months. And I think just about everything is going to be reflected in this package in one way or another. Now, obviously, we know the devil's in the details, and there's not going to be anybody out there that thinks this is the perfect package. Because if there's anything I've learned over the last couple of months since joining the Nerdy Transportation Club with Matt and Faith, is that there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen when it comes to transportation. And that's inherent because transportation impacts literally everyone, every business, every service, and everything we do as a state, right? Whether it's your business that relies on the roads, or you as an individual, or if you want to recreate on the weekends and you need the roads to get to that place, it's incredibly important and personal and local, as well as a state issue. So we have been doing a ridiculous amount of stakeholding and listening and discussing on what this is going to look like. It doesn't mean that this is going to be the last transportation bill, and that we're going to solve everything in this bill once and for all. But we are really hoping to make meaningful improvements and do it in a way that doesn't just kick the can down the road for a few years, but does it in a way that actually solves some of the structural problems. And we can talk more about what some of those problems are and how we're going to solve them. But I can say, you know, in reviewing the letter, there's definitely going to be a lot of focus on equity, a lot of focus on not just how do we move people from one place to the next, but how do we do it in a way that is actually reducing greenhouse gas emissions? How do we electrify and provide that infrastructure, and do it in a way that is not carving up the state and saying rural gets this and urban areas get this, but instead thinking about it from what are the needs, what are the problems, and how do we use this bill to create a new framework to solve those problems down the road. So we're gonna be thinking about air quality and congestion and things like that in this bill. So a lot of details still to come, but I'm sure folks have questions and we'll answer everything we can. But for now, I'll pass it over to Matt and Faith and see what they want to add and correct whatever I messed up. And then we'll open it up and do some Q&A.
Sure, and thank you, Mr. Majority Leader. I'm Matt Gray, representative from House District 33, which is all of Broomfield, and then the far eastern part of Boulder County, the town of Superior and the Boulder County side of Erie. And everything that Majority Leader Femberg just said is correct. We'll do a mini version of the breakdown of what we're planning. I'll talk about the input side, and Senator Winter will talk about the output side as far as what we have in mind. On the input side, as Majority Leader Femberg discussed, we're on an aging revenue stream and the gas tax that we haven't done anything to augment in a significant and sustainable way for 30 years now, and we want to address that. So what that looks like is we've gone and talked to a lot of folks across a lot of sectors and say, look, we want everybody to pitch in a little bit more so that nobody has to pitch in a ton more. So we have talked to folks across the business spectrum about chipping in more, and they're willing to do it under the right circumstances. And that goes from Amazon to Grubhub to Uber Eats to DoorDash to you name it. Folks who use the roads, Uber, Lyft, all those things, are willing to pitch in if it happens fairly. And we've talked to rental car companies, we've talked to peer-to-peer car sharing companies, and they're there too, but as long as everybody is pitching in. But there's also, you know, a few other big sources. One is electric vehicle users. We've said, look, there is a fee right now, but we're gonna ask for more because we need to actually have a sustainable revenue source. We have said from the general fund of the state, we need to pitch in more as a state. So if we're asking for other people to pitch in more, the state needs to do that as well. And, you know, the one that's in the news the most is we're saying, yeah, we're probably going to place a fee on gasoline that helps catch that, that revenue stream up as well. So what we're trying to do is charge everybody a little bit more who needs the system, who has investment in the system, who uses the system in order to modernize it and accomplish all the goals that Majority Leader Femberg discussed a second ago. And then I'll let Senator Winter talk about what those goals are.
Yeah, so on the output side, we know that CDOT's 10-year plan is really important because it's really focusing on some major congested areas and also on a lot of safety issues that we have across the state. So that's one piece, but as the Majority Leader said, we're future-proofing both how we're bringing in money, but how we're using it, which means that we have to get ready to electrify our fleets. And that's both medium, small, large fleets and size of vehicles in terms of making sure that we have the infrastructure where consumers feel confident they'll be able to charge their car, where delivery vehicles will feel confident that when they're out doing deliveries, they can have a charging infrastructure. So some of this money is gonna be spent on the charging infrastructure. And then we know in your letter, you talked about equity. It's really important to bring up equity and how we're moving people around and making sure that we have affordable mobility choice. And that's why we're really working to make sure we're spending money on multimodal options. And that doesn't just mean buses and trains. It can mean a lot of how we connect to those buses and trains, how we connect to mobility options. And so making sure that those are locally driven solutions. And then finally, we know that there's different needs in different regions, and this is important for you all, is how do we solve transportation issues in areas that are in non-air quality attainment areas? So areas that aren't meeting their pollution standards, areas where there's disproportionately impacted communities, and what projects can we do that help solve those problems? And so some of the money is gonna be spent on that as well. And so we're trying to future-proof both sides. We are gonna be rolling out specific numbers next week. We're not ready to today, but we will be doing that next week, and we look forward to getting your feedback on that. And with that, I think probably we want to open it up to questions.
So there are some questions starting to populate in the chat, and thank you to Senator Femberg. He's starting to answer them there. You talked about a lot of the things that will fund the transportation that will act as sources. But could you talk a little bit more about some of the outputs? You touched on some, but in this region, one of the messages that's come through is the multimodal elements. And right now in the chat specifically, they're asking about either can anything be applied to the rail? What kind of bike ped improvements could be possible here?
I'll just get started, and I think Faith and Matt are probably a little more up to speed on the federal conversations and how it potentially could connect to the rail conversations we're having here. But in terms of, I think Claire, you had a question around bike and ped. So we're specifically, obviously we are prioritizing transit, and transit's very important. But we're not saying transit only. We're intentionally saying multimodal, right? We want to make sure funds are going towards bike paths, sidewalks, pedestrian paths, et cetera. We recently passed a bill to further fund the Main Street revitalization program, and that is part of this larger conversation. That's been part of this transportation discussion. It moves separately so far because we want to make sure that that fund continues to have money to get out the door for local communities for some of those multimodal types of investments. But we absolutely are going to be prioritizing all different forms, not just transit. Although transit's going to be very important and has to be a big part of this puzzle. I'll see what Faith and Matt want to add about rail and some of the other pieces.
So, I've represented the Northwest area for a very long time. I was a city councilor before and actually carried petitions for fast tracks. So I've been working to get Northwest Rail since 2004. And we are in this moment where I think if we all come together, we can actually potentially get what we've all been paying into and waiting for. And this is one piece of it. So we've been talking to our federal delegation that represents this corridor about what would it take to attract federal money. And as we heard earlier from the congressman, there is going to potentially be significant federal money to invest in infrastructure. At the same time, Matt and I have had extensive conversations with Front Range Rail and also RTD. And about 2 weeks ago, they came out with an MOU talking about how they are working together. And our federal delegation said, the most important thing that you can do is make sure that we're setting a timeline for which route is chosen in order to get Front Range Rail. There are 3 routes that are under consideration. One is straight through the middle of downtown Denver and up I-25. One circles around through Aurora on 470, and one goes to downtown Denver and then goes through Boulder and Longmont, which essentially completes the Northwest Rail. Currently, the cheapest and the route with the best ridership is the Northwest Rail. And so essentially, if we can get the feds to come together, along with the states, and along with the local governments and with RTD, that says we're going to start Front Range Rail and we're going to start with this piece of it, I think we're closer than we've been ever before to getting the rail complete. But it's still a long way to go, right? It's still very expensive. No one has a single pot of money, but that's why this collaboration is so incredibly important, is making sure that all those entities work together. And the fact that Front Range Rail and RTD entered into an MOU a couple weeks ago is a significant step forward. And in this package, we're clearly not going to fund Front Range Rail, but we're hoping to take the next big steps to make it possible. And we've been talking to some federal lobbyists and railroad lobbyists to make sure that we are the top of the spending priority, and we're pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I'd say is that we do have, also have a bill that implements some of the recommendations of the RTD Accountability Committee that we set up with the governor over the summer. And, you know, we think that will help the system, but it's not the kind of money you need to do something like build Northwest Rail. Like RTD doesn't have the money, the state doesn't have the money, we just don't have the money. And we spent a lot of time talking about why that's a failure of the promises made in 2004, and I agree with that. But our best chance is, we can't scrounge together the few billion it would take to do that. The federal government, as I'm sure you all read in the newspaper, decided to spend $1.9 trillion the last couple of days. Like, the federal government is the place to go to get this money in the near to medium term if we're going to get it. They get to write their own, they get to print their own money, and we don't. Like, we have to have a balanced budget all the time, as does RTD. And so it's our best hope, but there's also people who are working on this project really hard. There are a lot of people who are working to get this federal money. And so working together to try to find a way, like if there is a federal infrastructure package, which our delegation says it is coming, that everybody on this call can work together to try to help get that money going. Because we can provide seed money for studies, that sort of thing. Neither the state nor RTD have the billions it's going to take to get the rail done, even as much as we all want to see it happen. But we can be smart about getting ourselves positioned just in case the federal government says, yeah, we are going to award some projects and you're going to be one of them.
Now, we had a question in the chat. There is a current formula that routes dollars back to communities, known as the HUTF formula. How are you looking at that formula and the request or recommendation that was made by the Metro Mayors Coalition recently about recommending that the funding go to the MPOs like the Dr. Cogs?
Okay. Majority Leader, do you want to do it?
It's all you.
Okay. So I think at this point, there's a lot of competing interests around the HUTF. And at the same time, we also agree with the goals that probably many of you have on this call and the Metro Mayors have about making sure we're reducing vehicle miles traveled, we're addressing climate, we're spending money in the metro area where a lot of the fees are going to come from, that we're addressing disproportionately impacted communities. And so at this point, we're not opening up the HUTF, but we're doing something new that can address those goals that we all share. And there is going to be a significant amount of money that's going to go towards areas that are in non-attainment for air quality. And the projects that are going to be awarded these money is going to have impacts on climate, congestion, and equity. And so those are the types of projects that Metro Mayors, and I imagine many of you on this call, want to accomplish. And so we're going to keep HUTF and create this pot of money for non-attainment areas to reach those goals and that request and to meet the needs that the Metro Mayors asked for.
Thank you, Senator Winter. I thought I saw Brian Copham. Did you have your hand raised for a question or a comment?
I did, and then I lowered it because I got a little uncertain, but I'll go ahead and jump in anyway. Brian Copham, I'm the Executive Director of Boulder County Farmers Markets and the Boulder Chamber, one of the co-chairs of the Community Action Council. And my question really kind of is related to this macro view. So when we think about funding coming in, it makes sense it would go to these areas of density because that's where the traffic is. And at the same time, there's this ever broadening urban-rural divide, and rural communities, I think, are generally left out of these kinds of efforts, or at least they feel they are. Are there solutions that are intended to benefit rural communities and so they see similar services, or is that really just not a possibility right now? Thank you.
I would say a lot of the 10-year plan is focused on rural roads and safety. And much of the 10-year plan is going to be funded by our proposal. And so we're absolutely going to be looking to rural roads and making sure we're making them safe, that they're in good repair, that we are able to transport the goods from rural areas, that we have rural roads where when all of us from urban areas drive out to the beautiful places in our state, that they have the capacity to do that. Now, we're not going to solve every transportation problem in the state with this package, but there is going to be a significant contribution to solving rural roads, especially early on, because we do have stimulus money right now. And when we're looking at stimulus money, we want stimulus money spent in a way that is quick, that produces jobs, and that means 10-year plan and rural road improvements. So we know that we can do rural road improvements in this bill while also looking at multimodal electrification and urban projects. And we can do all of it. We won't complete all of it. We won't do every program, but we can at least start addressing each of those buckets.
Yeah, and I would say just realistically, we also have to, what we're trying to do this year is actually to succeed in getting this money out into communities. We've had, as all of you know very well, a bunch of attempts to try to solve this problem over recent years, and they have failed at various stages in the process. But it's also true that where we are right now, the folks who are willing to provide us votes in this area are primarily come from suburban and urban areas. So we have to be the stewards of making sure that this balances, it both balances the needs of everyone, because we do have needs in in rural Colorado, and we do want to take care of the transportation system out there just as much as everywhere else. And also we have to deal with the fact that many of our colleagues won't vote for anything that has any increase in revenue other than charging electric vehicles. And there's not enough electric vehicle charges in the world to pay for the infrastructure that we need. And so that's the political balance we just have to strike. And that's not a secret, it's been in the paper, you can read it, but we've got to balance keeping the votes that we need, which are primarily urban and suburban, while also making sure that we don't create any transportation deserts in our state. They're going to not only negatively impact rural communities, but will affect our whole statewide economy and also just people in those areas where we don't want to create like transportation deserts. But it's a really tough balance because we're kind of doing this on our own. And so we got to figure out a way to strike that balance.
Thank you, Representative Gray. It looks like we do have more questions, but we're right up against our time. So to those that do have additional questions for Representative Gray, Senators Winter and Femberg, I would just say, please put those in the chat. Senator Femberg's already been answering some of those, and we could go ahead and tackle some of those there. Also in the chat is the letter that the Northwest Chamber Alliance sent to Governor Polis and our state legislative delegation. So for anybody who hasn't seen that or would like a copy, you can get it right out of that chat. We've heard a lot about trying to generate revenues and trying to figure out a statewide solution. At the end of the day, we're all here in the Northwest Denver region, and we are looking at our networks and thinking about where the priorities are. So also joined today, we have Boulder County Commissioner Claire Levy and City and County of Broomfield Mayor Patrick Quinn. We're part of the Northwest Mayors and Commissioners Coalition that is advocating for those dollars as well. So I turn it over to them. If we're to obtain new transportation funding, what are our highest regional priorities and how could we apply it here in Boulder and Broomfield counties? Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the great question and the great attendance here today. I want to start by just expressing my appreciation for all the work that's happening today that Congressman Neguse shared with us and that our state legislative leaders are bringing forward to really try to advance some solutions to these longstanding problems. And they're really thorny, and I commend them for trying to tackle them. New transportation funding is just critical, that's to state the obvious. And so it's really important that we are working together to create new opportunities that can support our communities. And everything just seems to be coming together right now in a really beautiful way so that we can leverage federal, state, and regional sources so that we can get the infrastructure and transportation projects going that have been neglected for so long. So it's really important that when any new funds become available, to be able to point to a well-documented plan for using those funds, because that really demonstrates that there is need, that there's broad community benefit, that thought has gone into the projects that are being selected for those funds, and that there's community buy-in. And so we're really fortunate here in Boulder County in the Northwest area to have a lot of regional cooperation through the Northwest MCC, through Commuting Solutions, as well as through DRCOG and the sub-regional forum that Boulder County participates in to allocate the sub-regional money. And so all of that regional cooperation that is going on really puts us in a good position to use those funds when they become available. So I think a lot of people who are participating in this conversation are aware of the NAMS, the Northwest Area Mobility Study. And that is really the platform for agreement on priorities for new funds that become available. And what the NAMS does is keep us focused on the long-range regional needs within Boulder County and connecting to adjacent communities, but also then providing room for localized priorities to come through other avenues. And so just to name, a couple of the projects that are really poised to receive the federal and state investment dollars that are hopefully going to be available. There's multimodal transportation improvements on State Highway 119. I think that's really the highest priority right now that connects Longmont and Boulder. And that will include a commuter bikeway and regional bus rapid transit service. And that's modeled after the improvements on US 36 from Boulder to Denver, the way that you have the bicycle commuting opportunity for really the full length of those new improvements and the BRT on that through a managed lane. There are other high priority projects that include safety and mobility improvements along State Highway 7 between Boulder and Brighton, US 287 between Longmont and Broomfield that I'm sure Mayor Quinn will talk more about, State Highway 42 in Louisville and Lafayette. So those are the main corridors that the NAMS has identified and put in priority for funds when they become available. But in addition to these regional priorities, obviously communities throughout Boulder County have a lot more needs that aren't addressed by that. And so that's where the local input comes into play for what the local street needs are, intersection safety improvements. We have the Vision Zero goal that we need to be making progress on, and a lot of the progress is going to depend on infrastructure improvements. There's bridge repairs, there's the bike and ped connections, which I asked about earlier, and regional trails. And those are important not just for recreation, but also for commuting as well. And then transit services that will provide mobility to residents, families, our aging population, and essential workers. So there are a lot of partnership opportunities going on that will really help us come together and get these projects going when these funds are available, and we're really already starting to see them flow. And so that's going to be what's going to help us be successful in this area. I'd love to hear Mayor Quinn's thoughts now on the Broomfield area.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I think it's kind of proof with Commissioner Levy giving the NAMs and talking about the things we all hold priority, shows how strong the Northwest Mayors and Commissioners Coalition has been over the years. I was mayor between 2007 and 2013, and the same energy we had then, exists right now. I do want to make a side comment. It was actually almost exactly a year ago when we did our lobbying trip to Washington, D.C., and Congressman Neguse had, it took us, I think we were the last tour of the Capitol on March 11th last year, and I want to thank Congressman Neguse. And we think back to last year, 1 year, what difference that year has made. It's been tremendous. And I do want to, and I also want to make the comment that having gone to Washington starting in 2008 on lobbying trips, the energy in Washington with the transit or the infrastructure bill, likewise the energy that's at the State House right now with the governor and Matt and Steve and everybody, I've never seen anything quite like it. I'll just go ahead and so I think things are going to happen. I think our area is poised to act on that. Commissioner Levy said exactly the priorities. We changed our name from US 36 Mayors and Commissioners to the Northwest Mayors and Commissioners this year. And Highway 119, Highway 7, which is really important to Broomfield, and then Highway 287 are our priorities. I want to speak a little bit about Highway 7 since it is Broomfield. Broomfield, and I think our partners envision Highway 7 to be a major economic engine going from Brighton to Boulder. And as Commissioner Levy said, that it's our hope to have a multimodal system from Brighton to Boulder. And there's a lot of existing communities there that it's going to take a lot of effort, but we're working together now. We have CDOT committed funds to help do our planning, not only on Highway 7, but also on our multimodal transit facility we want on Highway 7 and I-25. I'll make a comment. Broomfield's about to approve a district for McWhinney, which is called a baseline. It's going to be like $600-700 million worth of infrastructure. So what we're doing is huge. We anticipate 20,000 people in Broomfield on Highway 7 at baseline. So we need to get the infrastructure in place. It's important. It's extremely important to us. And I'll kind of close out, my comments there that, it's great to be part of the Northwest Mayors and Commissioners Coalition and NADA for that matter, because I know Commissioner Stewart's on here and she's involved with NADA, where we're working together regionally and we're poised to receive these funds that we anticipate coming in. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor Quinn, and thank you, Commissioner Levy. And for those of you keeping an eye on the chat, RTD District O Director Lynn Geisinger has just posted some additional information about Northwest Rail and what the RTD board is seeking to achieve there. With that being said, we want to hear from the businesses. You've heard from our speakers about what's occurring at the federal and state levels. Senator Femberg has to leave soon, and we know that Senators Fake Winter and Representative Gray have to leave, but we do have other elected officials here today. We do have local government staff, and they want to hear from you. We have other state representatives that are coming to this session and will be in the breakout rooms. And we want to hear what the businesses need. We want to hear what you're facing today, how you're relying on our transportation systems, and what you think are the ways in which it needs to evolve in order to serve you. So with that being said, we have 5 different breakout rooms that we're going to put folks into. They will be led and facilitated by members of the Northwest Chamber Alliance. And you'll have a mix of different chambers. You'll have folks from Boulder County, Broomfield County, representing RTD, state leadership, all kinds of people throughout the region. So with that being said, we will go ahead and do introductions in those rooms so that everybody knows each other when you get there. And we will ask those questions to you. We'll hear the reactions from our elected officials, but more than anything, we'll allow you to engage with each other in this conversation. With that being said, we will go till about 5:30. We will break from those rooms and end the event there. So without any further ado, we want to thank you for all being here. We want to thank our speakers. We want to thank our state legislators that spoke, and then Mayor Quinn, Commissioner Levy, they will join us in those rooms. So the conversations will continue there. So my colleague Tyler X will be taking us to those rooms right now. And we, on behalf of the Northwest Chamber Alliance, we thank everybody for the partnership, and we thank all our partners in the Northwest Chamber Alliance and for all of you to be here today. We'll see you in the breakouts.
Thanks. Bye-bye.